monsters to rocket ships, from time travelers to close encounters of every kind.
We have come to visit you in peace.
Hollywood science fiction films have taken audiences on thousands of fantastic voyages and epic journeys into the imagination. For nearly a century, what the mind could conceive, filmmakers would struggle to photograph. Technology often turned fiction into fact, and dreams really did come true.
The 20th century has been called the century of progress. In just 100 years, we've seen the advent of the telephone, television, satellites, and computers. We've driven in automobiles, flown on airplanes, and journeyed to the stars. Every year, it seems, the mysteries of science are being revealed, but not always with positive results. Who knew that the atom could destroy millions, or that the discovery of DNA would raise ethical questions about the origins of life itself? For this reason, then, it seems fitting that we as audiences play out our dreams and fears about technology in yet another marvel of the modern age, motion pictures.
Just as early movies could capture the blush of a kiss, or the thrill of a rushing locomotive, they could also alter reality in a way never seen before. Seen here is perhaps the first science fiction film. Inspired by Jules Verne's Victorian novel about a journey to the moon, French magician turned filmmaker Georges Méliès combined elaborate stage gimmicks with innovative camera techniques. Méliès was, and is, considered the father of the science fiction film, and his 21-minute epic dwarfed the one-minute films of its day. It also introduced audiences to the very first movie Aliens. By the way, that's Méliès himself playing the professor. Not to be outdone, motion picture inventor and pioneer Thomas Edison produced this early version of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. The story of a mad scientist who defies the laws of God and nature was familiar to turn-of-the-century audiences and led to a string of films based on popular novels and cultural myths. Among them, Jules Verne's 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, about Captain Nemo and his violent attempt to end warfare by means of a fantastic submarine. Produced in 1916, the film featured the most impressive underwater photography ever achieved up to that time. based on the novel by Robert Louis Stevenson. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde told the story of a man who uses chemistry to examine the darker side of human nature. But by 1920, film audiences had witnessed more than their share of science-based horrors. World War I had introduced weapons of mass destruction unlike any seen before, and audiences, fearful of technology's dark potential, began to seek escape into strange new worlds. Perhaps the most important science fiction film of the silent era was Fritz Lang's Metropolis. Produced in Germany in 1926 and scripted by Lang's wife and partner Thea von Harbo, the story concerned a futuristic city that had divided into two distinct classes: the wealthy elite industrialists and the dehumanized workers. A spiritual as well as a political allegory, Metropolis featured dramatic visual design and innovative special effects.
Everybody was talking about Metropolis. I began to hear, oh, this amazing movie, this remarkable film, you must see it. Realize that, well, you're seeing something in 1927 that was almost indeed 100 years ahead of its time. Seeing things like a telephone in it where the man saw an image of the individual he was speaking to. Fritz Lang had that on film many years before the actuality of it.
Someone's at the door. See who it is.
With the innovation of sound films, special effects could now be heard as well as seen. Less serious than Metropolis, but no less visually impressive, was this film, produced by Fox Studios in 1930.
I have built a plane that will make the trip to Mars and return.
Take a look at it, Ollie, and it's a sight no one's ever seen before.
Set in the far future of 1980,
Now for a happy landing.
Just Imagine was a musical comedy that used science fiction as an elaborate and at times bizarre backdrop.
Who is that fella?
He's an idol.
He's idle with all those girls?
The reason they were able to make it, I guess, was because they made it as a musical. When they got to Mars, they found a race of dancing girls there, and the gentlemen of the time found that very attractive.
Lulu, I'll bet she is.
In 1933, producer Marion C. Cooper and director Ernest Schoedsack unleashed one of the greatest monsters ever on an unsuspecting world. Using innovative camera and sound techniques, King Kong established a new standard of excellence for motion pictures.
Kong! The eighth wonder of the world!
Even now, it's hard to believe that Kong was, in fact, an 18-inch puppet, moved by hand and shot one frame at a time by stop-motion animation wizard Willis O'Brien. O'Brien had pioneered these techniques years earlier. In this silent version of Arthur Conan Doyle's The Lost World.
You're crazy to know who I am, aren't you? All right, I'll show you. There's a souvenir for you. And one for you. I'll show you who I am and what I am.
Equally impressive was The Invisible Man.
He's all eaten away.
Directed by James Whale for Universal Pictures.
Reckon I ain't kept a blooming shirt.
Based on the novel by H.G. Wells and starring the voice, if not the body, of Claude Rains.
I'm afraid I need this bicycle.
The film told the familiar tale of the mad scientist who sows the seeds of his own destruction.
The drugs I took seemed to light up my brain. Suddenly I realized the power I held. The power to rule, to make the world grovel at my feet. We'll begin with a reign of terror. A few murders here and there. Murders of great men. Murders of little men. I might even wreck a train or two. Get that searchlight on the door of that barn.
Considered the father of modern science fiction, Herbert George Wells was equally famous as a philosopher and historian. His popular books often warned of the dangers of technology when mixed with human nature. In 1936, he adapted his story, The Shape of Things to Come, for the screen.
2036 AD. You are catapulted through the centuries, whirled into the great unknown, into an era of glass cities towering to the sun, and a gigantic space gun rocketing passengers to the moon.
Things to Come, which is the science fiction film of the 1930s, was probably one of the few examples in cinematic history where the original author had almost complete and total control over the production on every level, from involving himself in the direction, from writing the script.
Is man never to be free? Make this space come the symbol of all that drives us, and destroy it.
From selecting the music, from selecting the costume.
Well, they're rotting. It's barbarism come back again.
Very few films ever had an individual as powerful as was H.G. Wells on Things to Come.
Both Metropolis and Things to Come offered audiences a pathway to peaceful resolution of human differences. Unfortunately, it was a path that would not be taken, and the science fiction film would soon take a backseat to the real-life horrors of the Second World War.
You are watching Hollywood Aliens and Monsters on A&E.
By the late 1930s, adult audiences didn't seem to have very much of an appetite for futurism. Especially when the nightmare visions of Things to Come and Metropolis seemed to be coming true right before their eyes. A notable exception, of course, was provided by this popular film series.
Flash Gordon!
You didn't think you'd get away with this, did you, Ming?
Targeted at children, Flash Gordon offered Saturday afternoon audiences a comic book world of rocket ships, ray guns,
Gender, I have brought you some new prisoners to experiment with.
and evil villains like Ming the Merciless.
Ready, Your Majesty.
significant demonstration, don't you think, General Lupi? We will see now how well it works on a Phrygian nobleman.
As played by Larry Buster Crabb, a former Olympic swimming star, Flash was the kind of square-jawed hero audiences needed.
Stay where you are, Gordon. Get away from that door, Gordon, or I'll pull the trigger. Move, quick.
Don't let him get away, Flash. He's calling the patrol. The Ming's about to attack.
Roger, stand back.
Another far-fetched fantasy film was this one, released by Paramount in 1940.
Come, my little friend, there's nothing here to alarm you.
Directed by Ernest Schoedsack, one of the men responsible for King Kong, Dr. Cyclops offered gigantism as a kind of technicolor metaphor. It's David and Goliath tale of little people versus a strange, goggle-eyed captor, seen to mirror the Allied fight against fascist oppression.
What are you going to do?
As you and your fellows develop toward normal size, you will again interfere with my work. And that is something which I cannot permit.
But Dr. Cyclops' big-budget symbolism proved the exception, not the rule. For the most part, science fiction in the early 1940s served as little more than a backdrop for kiddie matinee monster movies.
I could crush all opposition and make me the most powerful man in the world.
In the first decade of sound, it was all pretty much mad scientists.
I'm going to give that brain of yours a new home in the skull of the Frankenstein monster.
We were still clinging to the notion that he meddled with things man was meant to leave alone.
I'm going to give him life.
Then, the utter destruction of Hiroshima and Nagasaki ended the war. But the power of the atom proved more deadly than any envisioned by science fiction. The age of innocence was at an end. Rockets and radiation were real, and motion pictures were about to grow up.
Once the atom bomb fell on the world, it really blew away a lot of dust from the front of eyes that had not had much belief in the potentials of science.
It's also interesting to note that America has become engulfed in a Cold War. We are at a time in our history where we're thinking, well, if there's another war, it will be the end of mankind. So the themes that were developed in the early 50s touch upon that in many different ways.
The race is on, and we'd better win it. The first country that can use the moon for the launching of missiles will control the Earth. 5, 4, 3, 2, fire.
Based on a novel by Robert Heinlein and directed by Irving Pitchell, Destination Moon attempted a kind of documentary realism. In an effort to base his film on fact rather than fiction, producer and animator George Pal consulted several noted scientists and astronomers. With Pal's encouragement, makeup artist Webster Phillips devised a means of stretching the actors' faces to simulate G-forces. And famed astronomical painter Chesley Bonestall designed a lunar landscape which took 100 men 2 months to build.
I first met George Pal in 1949 on the set of Destination Moon, that big set of the moon. They had it refrigerated. They had people walking with coats because the guys in these spacesuits were dying with these things. So they were filled with K-pop, stuff you stuff mattresses and things with. These guys were dying in these suits. And I walked on that set and saw this big moonscape and all this stuff, and I thought I was on another world.
I'll say this must weigh 500-600 pounds.
On Earth it does. Gravity up here is about 1/6 as much. That means things weigh 1/6 as much.
Well, the impact that Destination Moon had on the public was because it's a really serious attempt to show us what it would be like for the first human being to set foot upon our neighboring world.
The flag for count, all stand by. Fire!
It was the vision of Heinlein and George Pal. They weren't fooling around and just trying to make something to scare.
George Pal took home an Oscar for special effects.
But by the 1950s, many believed that we Earthlings weren't the only ones exploring outer space. Reports of an alien spacecraft landing outside Roswell, New Mexico in 1947 fueled wild rumors that we might not be alone.
Do we have visitors from space?
Are the many sightings fact or fiction?
In 1950, I got a book called Behind the Flying Saucers. And in this book, it was purported to be true that the Air Force was covering up a crashed flying saucer in Roswell, and they had little green men. And I think that was kind of an unexpected bestseller in 1950, and I think that was a big influence on a lot of producers in Hollywood.
The first science fiction film to feature a flying saucer was a film called The Flying Saucer, made in 1950, a very low-budget, mediocre film.
What's the matter? Hear something?
Yes, don't you?
Jet plane, maybe.
But it had the saucer originating on Earth, and its origin having to do with the communists.
Don't shoot!
As opposed to alien beings trying to take over the planet.
Turner's flying it to Russia.
The communist scare and all this kind of stuff, started all of these paranoia-type films. And a lot of the science fiction stuff really folded right into paranoia, I think. But I think it was that feeling of distrust and not knowing, all the aliens came down had to be bad guys.
We bring you this special radio television broadcast in order to give you the very latest information on an amazing phenomenon, the arrival of a space ship in Washington.
As if to calm America's paranoid fears, 20th Century Fox offered The Day the Earth Stood Still, about mankind's first contact with an alien visitor.
We have come to visit you in peace and with goodwill.
Well, on the day the Earth stood still, we didn't have a man and his robot come here to rule the world. He came here to warn us we better straighten up and fly right, or we were going to fly right out of the solar system, be burned to a cinder. And it was nice for a change to have a very charismatic individual from another world rather than a villainous one.
Well, I'll tell you, Bobby, I've been away a long time. Very far away.
Is it different where you've been? Don't they have places like this?
Oh, they have cemeteries, but not like this one. You see, they don't have any wars.
Gee, that's a good idea.
I think one of the reasons that it hasn't dated and it has such credibility was that it was laid in our capital in Washington, D.C. And so you saw the Washington Monument, you saw the Lincoln Memorial, you saw the Capitol. And I think those elements that are there today and that were in our film help to give it a particular degree of credibility, of believability above and beyond just another science fiction film.
What happened?
What time is it?
Just 12.
We shall be here for a little while. About 30 minutes.
Well, we can try pushing the other buttons.
They won't work.
Why not?
You see, the electricity's been neutralized all over the world.
That's Spaceman. That's what it is.
about Gort. I'm afraid of what he might do if anything should happen to me. If anything should happen to me, you must go to Gort. You must say these words: Klaatu, Barada, Nikto.
I thought it was hysterical. The fact man came from outer space, you know, and I found it so hard to keep a straight face. But it turned out to be a divine film. I loved it.
Gort, Klaatu, Barada, Nikto. Klaatu, Barada, Nikto.
I'll tell you one of the reasons I liked it so much was not only for the story itself and my belief in the existence of other intelligence, but also its message, what it had to say, which was saying to the Earth, stop fooling around with this talk of nuclear warfare and all that, you know, come to your senses and knock it off and let's have peace in the world.
Your choice is simple. Join us and live in peace, or pursue your present course and face obliteration. We shall be waiting for your answer. The decision rests with you.
The day the Earth stood still offered a powerful meditation on the responsibility that came with nuclear power and the very real dangers that might come from its misuse.
Hollywood Aliens and Monsters continues on A&E.
The 1950s, a time of rock and roll, rocket-fin cars, and a relatively new invention called television. It was the era of the prosperous post-war baby boom, and technology made everything seem possible, from our wildest dreams to our worst nightmares.
That thing's alive, sir. I saw it. I shot at it. I hit it. I know it.
In 1951, acclaimed director Howard Hawks produced The Thing, a cinematic blend of science fiction and horror.
The Thing from Another World. This is the spot where it was first seen. And these are the first people who saw the Thing. How did it get here? Where did it come from? What is it?
Gentlemen, do you realize what we've found? A being from another world, as different from us as one pole from the other. Now hold this in front of you. Stay by the light switch.
1.9. Needles hit the top.
But literary purists condemned The Thing for its oversimplification of complex philosophical and scientific issues. It didn't seem to matter. The film was a box office blockbuster, and the age of the sci-fi monster movie was in full swing.
You kill everyone we've got to stop now.
That was all teenage stuff. The kids that went to see these just ate them up. I mean, they couldn't make them fast enough.
Now, on an almost weekly basis, movie-going teenagers were treated to steady doses of alien invaders, atomic mutations, giant bugs, giant brains, giant people, little people, and a host of resurrected dinosaurs and prehistoric beasts.
Every device of military science, every defensive weapon, radar, planes, rockets, marshaled to destroy 1,000 tons of beastly fury.
It really was the beginning of the explosion of science fiction films. A lot of drive-in theaters were being built all through rural America, and there really wasn't enough product to play in them. Producers were getting into the business, and they were making a lot of very quick films dealing with outer space or aliens. They made films in 3 and 4 and 5 days.
What astounding technical developments are being made to protect mankind? Robot Monster brings you an actual preview of the devastating forces of our future.
Fool humans, there is no escape from me.
Your death will be indescribable.
It was a period of inexpensive B pictures playing in the drive-in areas. For example, I was cast in a movie, The Man from Planet X, costing $41,000 over a 6-day shoot, done on one sound stage at the old Hal Roach Studios, in the sets that were originally built for Joan of Arc, which starred Ingrid Bergman.
Fine.
Now, with overtime, my check came to $208.
What's his appearance here mean? At midnight, when the planet is at its closest approach to Earth, an invasion will be launched.
We didn't have that luxury of working on big budgets.
They used to come up with titles before they even had a story. Day the World Ended. God, what a great title that is. You know, stuff like that. It conquered the world. Well, it did everything. I mean, there were its all over the place, you know.
From beyond space, it came.
It, the terror from beyond space. It came from outer space.
Yes, it came from outer space to fill the world with terror.
I mean, how many its can you have? But they all came here, and they all tried to destroy us.
Is that a fireball or something? Boy, that's big.
In 1953, producer George Powell returned to the world of H.G. Wells.
Hey there! Open up! We're friends!
For this cinematic adaptation of War of the Worlds.
Let them have it! Fire! Those shells can't get through to them. They put out some sort of electromagnetic covering.
Starring Gene Barry and co-starring Anne Robinson, it offers spectacular visual effects.
We, as actors, were reacting to the directors promising us that these effects would really come off. We had to believe that he was going to make the special effects occur, that we wouldn't be standing there with egg on our faces.
It was just so well made. Here, the universe didn't revolve around us. Suddenly, when we thought we had all the technology we needed, the atomic bomb, the Martians come and totally take us by surprise and slap us right in the face.
Take my word for it, General. This type of defense is useless against that kind of power.
We couldn't stop the Martians with our armament. And eventually, at the height of the attack, they began to die off, one by one.
Something's happening.
They were dying of something that we as humans had built up enough resistance to overcome. And that was the common cold germ.
But while cold germs were wiping out Martians, another, perhaps more insidious disease was spreading throughout the country: the Red Scare.
The question is, have you ever been a member of the Communist Party?
I don't believe you have the right to ask the question of anybody.
Fueled by Senator Joseph McCarthy and the House Un-American Activities Committee, American paranoia about the threat of global communism was reaching epidemic proportions.
You refuse to answer that question, is that correct? I have told you that I will... All right, stand away from the stand. Fight for the Bill of Rights, which you are going to destroy. Stand away from the stand.
The infamous witch hunts were on, and alien monsters were seen to be everywhere in our midst. As directed by William Cameron Menzies, Invaders from Mars suggested that an alien invasion might come packaged in benign human form.
Invaders from Mars, capturing humans at will for their own sinister purposes, turning them into diabolical instruments of destruction. A general of the army becomes a saboteur.
trusted police turned into arsonists. The boy's parents changed into killers.
Aliens could also be among us in the form of giant pods that duplicate us while we sleep.
Where do they come from?
I don't know.
They come from another world, spawned in the light years of space, unleashed to take over the bodies and souls of the people of our planet.
Make them listen to me before it's too late! Listen to me. Please listen. If you don't, if you won't, if you fail to understand, then the same incredible terror that's menacing me will strike at you!
In the early 50s, the Red Menace and the Red Scare was very much in the forefront in this country.
From city to city, an incredible hysterical panic spreads as the unimaginable becomes real.
And I think those pictures, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, Invaders from Mars, sort of played on that in a way that slowly we were being taken over by something sinister, some force that really makes us do things against our will.
Stop and listen to me, listen! They're here already! Join me!
Imagine yourself as one of the crew of this faster-than-light spaceship of the future, sharing their curiosity to know the unknown.
Produced by MGM on a lavish budget, Forbidden Planet offered a futuristic twist on Shakespeare's The Tempest.
The flesh thing's invisible!
Your subconscious sent its monster out again. More deaths, Morbius. More murder.
With Walter Pidgeon as an interplanetary Prospero.
My evil self is at that door, and I have no power to stop it!
And a robot named Robbie, who quickly became a cybernetic superstar.
Welcome to Altair Hor, gentlemen.
He was known everywhere. I mean, you knew who the rest of the people were in the film, but you mentioned Forbidden Planet, everybody immediately thinks of Robbie the Robot. In fact, in the film, it was introducing Robbie the Robot. When did a robot ever get their own credit in a movie?
Coffee is ready, sir.
Well, thanks, Robot.
For your convenience, I am monitored to respond to the name Robbie.
Fine. Robbie. With its cautionary tale of scientific knowledge run amok, Forbidden Planet reinforced many of science fiction's most time-honored themes. It also set a technical standard that would take nearly a decade to surpass.
You are watching Hollywood Aliens and Monsters on A&E.
We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things. Not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
By the early 1960s, real scientific marvels were happening every day. Astronauts and cosmonauts were rocketing into space.
Go ahead, 7-4. Okay, we better go now, is that right? Affirmative.
And the early predictions of science fiction novelists now didn't seem far-fetched after all.
The 60s is a rather disappointing time in the early years for science fiction. Except for The Time Machine, which is almost a fond farewell to the 50s science fiction movie.
It took the creative magic of George Pal to catapult you through time into a world that is yet to be.
That machine can do what you see it can. Destroy it, George, before it destroys you.
Is this the human race of the future? Or is this the Morlocks, fiendish creatures who live in a weird underground world? And the Eloi, the tranquil sunshine people, who the Morlocks dominate and maintain like cattle to feed upon them in cannibalistic horror.
There it is. The land where monsters live.
In 1960, producer-director Irwin Allen offered his unique vision of Arthur Conan Doyle's The Lost World. This time, dinosaurs did indeed come to life, if only in the form of lizards and alligators in makeup.
Yes, you're heading out of this world into the wildest of all jungles. With Michael Rennie, Jill St. John, David Hedison, Claude Rains, Fernando Lamas, and Frosty the Poodle.
I didn't like the script. I didn't believe in the script, and I'd get on the set and I'd see Jill St. John in pink tights holding a poodle.
Frosty, come on, baby. Come on, Frosty. Come on.
And then, when I saw it, I thought, oh my God, never again.
Run, Professor! I can't!
Also produced and directed by Irwin Allen was Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea.
You are there when the entire sky catches on fire, the burning Van Allen belt threatening to destroy the universe. You are there when the giant of the sea attacks. Not even the soaring imagination of a Jules Verne could have dreamed of such a fantastic adventure.
I think Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, the movie version with Walter Pidgeon, was a pretty good film. Irwin Allen loved to use a lot of stars. Used a lot of people. I think that was good for the public because they got to see a lot of stars all together, which is kind of cool.
Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea served as the inspiration for a successful television series and helped usher in a new era in science fiction entertainment, one that relied more on fantasy than fact.
Let's prepare for a landing, Brad.
Okay.
I'll tell you this, if there are any intelligent creatures on this planet, they're our enemies.
You've got to face the reality of being alone forever.
Emergency. Batman speaking. Warning all of you to brace yourselves for big news.
Fire one! Fire one!
You find adventure beyond your imagination when you get lost in space with Barbarella.
Of course, not all 1960s science fiction was so far-fetched.
You are listening to the sound of a completely new screen experience.
A notable exception to the campy pop culture craze was Fantastic Voyage.
Phase one. Phase one.
Directed by Richard Fleischer and produced by Saul David, the story offered a twist on little people films like Dr. Cyclops.
Stand by for injection.
This time, miniature scientists are injected into the human body.
Inject.
There to perform a complex, life-saving operation.
Sort of a groundbreaking film. We did lots and lots of things for the first time. A lot of effects were sort of dreamed up on that set. All of the underwater stuff was not done underwater at all, but done with wires, and they were shot with a certain amount of smoke, so that the effect was really quite telling. I've been asked many times, well, gee, how did you do it all underwater and all? It's ridiculous. I would have thought anybody would know it wasn't underwater, but nobody did.
On July 20th, 1969, astronaut Neil Armstrong became the first man to walk on the moon.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
But what he found there was not the fanciful world of Victorian myth. There were no exotic space monsters or mountains made of cheese. Only dust, rocks, and the lonely image of planet Earth on the horizon.
Could it be that we were alone in the vastness of the universe? To find out, new myths would have to be invented. Other worlds would have to be explored.
Millions of years ago, before the human race existed, an adventure began. An adventure that ultimately leads man to confront his own destiny in an odyssey of exploration.
From the brilliant minds of filmmaker Stanley Kubrick and science fiction author Arthur C. Clarke came 2001, A Space Odyssey, an epic journey into the future and beyond time.
Here's what started the whole thing. We thought it might be the upper part of some buried structure, so we excavated out on all sides.
And what's more, it seems to have been deliberately buried.
2001, to me, probably changed how I would look at science fiction movies after that. That was a brand new roadmap that nobody had ever taken before. And there were things in that film that nobody had ever seen.
In 2001 was, without question, almost pure science fiction. Not only was it abstract, and not only was everyone wondering what does all of this mean, but it transcended science fiction fans. It made science fiction legitimate.
In the first year of the 21st century, there is strange and wondrous beauty, startling experiences that jolt and mystify.
What we were trying to do was to convey the wonder and the beauty and above all the promise of space exploration. At the same time, we were tackling an even more ambitious theme, and this was nothing less than an attempt to convey the possible, indeed the probable place of man in the hierarchy of the universe.
Still considered by many to be one of the greatest films ever made, it offered astounding visual effects and forever changed the face and the voice of science fiction cinema.
Hello, Hal, do you read me?
Affirmative, Dave. I read you. It's very interesting how the filmmakers made Hal, whose voice is very melodic, very pleasing, oftentimes very friendly, but yet underneath there is a desire for self-preservation at any cost.
Open the pod bay doors, Hal.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
What are you talking about, Hal?
This mission is too important for me to allow you to jeopardize it.
And now, your journey is just beginning.
2001 offered the culmination of more than half a century of filmmaking. It represented both the end and the beginning of an era. Science fiction cinema had come of age, and Hollywood aliens and monsters would never be the same.
Hollywood Aliens and Monsters continues on A&E.
This is an experiment in makeup for an experience in imagination and terror.
In 1967, film producer Arthur P. Jacobs and director Franklin Schaffner produced this rare test for their screen adaptation of Pierre Boulle's book, Planet of the Apes.
I was approached by Arthur Jacobs with a remarkable series of paintings of scenes that Arthur envisioned. And he then spent 2 years shopping it around. And he would go from studio to studio, and they would say, "What are you talking about? Spaceships? Talking monkeys? You're out of your mind. That's Saturday morning serials. Get out of here." Finally, Richard Zanuck, who was then running Fox, said, let's have a meeting on this. And Dick Zanuck said, these monkeys, they're really going to be actors, right, in makeup. What if people laugh at the makeups? We said, let's do a scene.
In this brief film, As in our intended picture, Charlton Heston plays the role of the astronaut Thomas, and Edward G. Robinson, Dr. Zaius.
Man here is an animal. Man here was an animal. He had no civilization. He wore no clothes. He thought no thoughts. He spoke no language.
Just a few feet from this tent, you found a cemetery. Built and filled by a civilized race. A race which, according to you, never got beyond a crawl and a couple of grunts. And you found more than a cemetery, Doctor. You found a question. Which came first, the chicken or the egg? The ape or the man?
Zanuck said, I'll take the test to New York and show it to the board. If they don't laugh, I'll do the picture. Richard took it to New York. They didn't laugh. And he said, okay, we're off.
Although there would be significant changes when it was finally brought to the screen, Planet of the Apes represented a radical departure from most science fiction films produced in Hollywood.
It was an entirely fresh idea for a film.
Okay. We're here to stay.
What interested me particularly about it was the dichotomy of Taylor's character.
I can't help thinking somewhere in the universe there has to be something better than man.
He was a harsh, embittered man who had become so disenchanted with his civilization that he literally leaves the earth. And then he finds himself in an alien planet populated by apes. And he is alone required to defend humankind.
You did it. Cut up his brain, you bloody baboon! Cut him!
Written for the screen by Rod Serling and Michael Wilson.
It's a madhouse!
Planet of the Apes used its simian world as a backdrop for thought-provoking...
You're afraid of me? What are you afraid of?
...and highly entertaining social...
You know what they say. Human see, human do.
...political...
Tell us, why are all apes created equal?
Some apes, it seems, are more equal than others.
...and religious satire.
The Almighty created the ape in his own image. He set him apart from the beasts of the jungle and made him the lord of the planet.
Smile. With its revolutionary makeup by John Chambers. And an experimental music score by Jerry Goldsmith. Planet of the Apes became one of the top-grossing films of the year and one of the best science fiction films ever made.
Take your stinking paws off me, you damn dirty ape!
There are now 5 minutes to self-destruct.
The early 70s witnessed the return of acclaimed director Robert Wise to the genre.
The set you've just seen is the nerve center of a secret 5-story underground laboratory, which is the star of my new film for Universal.
Having received numerous awards for both West Side Story and The Sound of Music, Wise chose Michael Crichton's The Andromeda Strain as his first foray into science fiction since The Day the Earth Stood Still.
I felt very much the need to do something very contemporary, very much right now. And that was The Andromeda Strain.
We see bodies, lots of them.
Stage station. Hit that security button.
I liked very much what it was about, the indictment of biological warfare.
Too bad he can't tell us what happened.
Maybe he can. If he lives.
I just wanted to inform you that all members of your team have been cleared and are now being called in.
I said to the studio, I thought we would have a greater credibility of the story if the actors are less known. Good actors, but less known than big-name actors. I think it lends a greater degree of believability to the whole thing.
It's growing.
What the hell are you doing? Turn off the oxygen. Put him on room air.
No! The air is thick with Andromeda. Experiment with your own life, damn it! Andromeda will spread everywhere. They'll never be rid of it.
People have got to know whether or not their president is a crook. Well, I'm not a crook.
During the 1970s, government cover-ups and Watergate made us lose faith in institutions.
I shall resign the presidency effective at noon tomorrow.
Watergate had an unbelievable effect upon the American public, we began to see conspiracies where there may not be conspiracies. And filmmakers are grasping these particular conspiracies and developing films around them.
The Stepford Wives, about what men can do behind closed doors.
I like to watch women doing little domestic chores.
You came to the right town. It took me so long to get the upstairs floor to shine. I'll just die if I don't get this recipe.
The men are getting exactly what they always dreamed of. Perfect wives.
The women change once they get there. I think the men make them change. You are different. Your figure's different. Your face, what you talk about, all of this is different. Look, I've cut myself. Please.
Oh, look at your hand.
No, you look.
Johanna. How could you do a thing like that? When I was just going to give you coffee. When I was just going to give you coffee. When I was just going to give you coffee.
Post-apocalyptic visions abounded as filmmakers offered their own, often bleak, notions of the future.
You have been raised up from brutality. Kill the brutals who multiply. Go forth and kill. Zardoz has spoken.
When the tiny crystal in the palm of your hand flashes its final message, your time is up.
Runner!
Michael York is Logan.
Run, Logan!
Policeman in a perfect world.
No!
Trained to track down runners.
Run, Logan!
Until he is forced to run himself.
It was getting very negative feelings about humankind and different things like that. I was going away from the George Powell stuff that always had hope, that's for sure.
But all that was about to change. Star Wars, released by 20th Century Fox in 1977. It signaled the dawn of a new age in science fiction movies.
I'm Luke Skywalker. I'm here to rescue you.
With a tip of the hat to the carefree days of Flash Gordon serials,
I'm going to make the jump to light speed.
George Lucas and his creative team added 2001-style special effects to the epic story of a farm boy who takes on an evil empire.
Came along at just the right time.
You must learn the ways of the Force.
The Force?
It's an energy field created by all living things. It surrounds us and penetrates us. It binds the galaxy together.
It was basically 1977's feel-good movie. Anyone could go to this.
Here they come.
You did not have to be a science fiction fan because it wasn't a science fiction movie. It's a science fantasy movie.
Great kid! Don't get cocky!
He was the heroes and the bad guys. It was Flash Gordon and westerns all tied together.
I am the master.
Only a master of evil, not.
Brought up to speed with all of the new technology.
Red 5 standing by. I worked on Star Wars for a couple of years before it evolved into what it is.
Accelerate to attack speed!
Fairly early on that the idea of a space dogfight came into play. Wouldn't it be interesting to take that kind of visual excitement and put it into outer space?
Here they come!
I had no idea at that point how I was going to accomplish it. So it really wasn't until I got together with some of the people who I brought in to figure it out and to begin to focus on the fact that we would have to create a different technology. And we did what we call videomatics, which we'd take little models and move them around on video and transfer that. And we did do some little animated pieces. And then I took, footage from actual dogfights that got out of gun cameras in World War I and World War II. And out of that created a sequence sequence that is more visual in motion.
I'll be right there.
Because it seemed inconceivable that I could actually do what Kubrick had done in 2001 and, you know, have it be done for any amount of money that I would have access to.
Produced for under $10 million, Star Wars went on to become the biggest grossing box office film of all time, and its now famous score, written by the incomparable John Williams, has become an anthem heard all over the world.
Red 5, I'm going in.
Like 2001, Star Wars revolutionized,
I have you now,
re-energized, and redefined the science fiction film.
Look out! You're all clear, kid. Now let's blow this thing and go home.
And gave a new generation of filmmakers the tools to create the impossible.
Remember, the Force will be with you, always.
You are watching Hollywood Aliens and Monsters on A&E.
All right, let's see. Let me stop you.
Released the same year as Star Wars, Steven Spielberg's Close Encounters of the Third Kind offered a refreshing twist on the alien invasion films of the 1950s. Working with a budget of nearly $4 million, special effects wizard Douglas Trumbull transformed our notion of the flying saucer into a spectacular carnival of light. Unlike the evil aliens of H.G. Wells, these were benign, super-intelligent beings. Intergalactic visitors who sought kinship, not conquest. By the end of the decade, science fiction films had proven themselves a valuable box office commodity. The blockbuster status of Star Wars and Close Encounters sent Hollywood executives scrambling for new product. In 1979, Paramount Pictures answered the prayers of millions of fans and brought TV's Star Trek to the big screen.
Engineering, stand by for warp drive.
Captain, we need further warp simulation on the flow sensors.
Engineer, we need warp speed now.
Directed by Robert Wise, the film featured an ensemble cast led by William Shatner as Captain James T. Kirk, Spock, and Leonard Nimoy as the very logical Mr. Spock.
Commander, if I may.
Oh.
I've been monitoring your communications with Starfleet Command, Captain. I offer my services as science officer.
Well, so help me, I'm actually pleased to see you. This original script they sent me, the Spock character was not in it. Leonard Nimoy had stated that no more Spock. He was tired of putting those damn ears on and whatnot. He didn't want to do Spock ever again. But when I took the script and I took it home and my wife read it, and my daughter and son-in-law, who were war Trekkies, read the script and said, "Hey, you can't possibly think of doing this without the Spock character. You know, that's not Star Trek. You must have him."
I must try to mind meld with it.
But despite what some critics felt was a film with more special effects than human emotion, Star Trek the Motion Picture was a box office success and signaled the beginning of a whole new Star Trek franchise, an empire that would come to include television, movies, and merchandising.
Did we just see the beginning of a new life form?
Yes, Captain. We witnessed a birth. Possibly a next step in our evolution.
There she is. There she is.
Not so wounded as we were led to believe. Uhura, patch me in.
Aye, sir.
Khan. I'm laughing at the superior intellect. full impulse power. Hell's heart, I stab at thee. Go through.
By now, sci-fi had become big business. And with the release of The Empire Strikes Back in 1980, George Lucas found himself at the head of a multi-billion-dollar industry.
As the fighters go in, we assume that the Rebel cruisers also start to go in.
Now called Lucasfilm, the Star Wars empire included an army of artists, craftspeople, and special effects wizards.
Let her go!
With its lavish budget, The Empire Strikes Back offered a more textured and complex chapter to what was now announced as the Star Wars saga.
I'm not afraid.
You will be.
Sir, the possibility of successfully navigating an asteroid field is approximately 3,720 to 1.
Never tell me the odds.
Sure, the fun was still there. With a decidedly darker tone.
There is no escape. Don't make me destroy you.
The Star Wars series started out as a movie that ended up being so big that I took each act and cut it into its own movie. The original concept really related to a father and a son, and it was that relationship that was the core of the story.
Obi-Wan never told you what happened to your father.
He told me enough. He told me you killed him.
No. I am your father.
I had to make a decision about whether I was really going to go through with him being his father. And I came to the decision of that was the original story. That's the way it should be.
That's not true. That's impossible!
Search your feelings. You know it to be true.
No!
Well, I think Star Wars is such a success because it goes beyond all of the wonders that attract the eye.
How you doing, you old pirate? So good to see you!
It gave us characters that we could really identify with. Once you get characters you don't forget, well, you like to come back and see them do their tricks over and over again.
Come on!
In 1983, Return of the Jedi capped the first of what was announced as a potential trio of Star Wars trilogies.
Let's go, and don't forget the droids. Run away!
By now, the epic battle between Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader was entrenched in the national psyche.
Fulfill your destiny and take your father's place at my side.
A new mythology had been created, one which offered mystic notions of Jedi Knights and the power of the Force.
Never. I'll never turn to the dark side.
If you will not be turned, you will be destroyed.
upon the foundation he laid with Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Steven Spielberg offered a child's eye view of aliens in E.T., one of the most charming and emotionally satisfying science fiction films ever made. Extraterrestrial expanded on the theme of the benevolent alien and offered a message of peace through friendship and understanding through love.
Hollywood Aliens and Monsters continues on A&E.
The optimism offered by films like Star Wars, Star Trek, and E.T. was giving way to a new kind of cynicism. As if in response to the excesses of the disco decade, audiences began to fear yet another alien monster. The monster within ourselves.
Sleep. The seed is planted. Sleep. Terror grows.
Matthew! Matthew!
Wake the others!
Elizabeth, wake up! That's you when you sleep.
In 1978, director Philip Kaufman offered his updated version of Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
People are being duplicated.
How do you know my name? I didn't tell you my name.
Now set in urban San Francisco, the film indicted burgeoning yuppie consumerism in much the same way the original had attacked 50s middle-class conformity.
It's got no detail, no character. It's unformed.
All of a sudden, they're growing like parasites. Is it contagious?
What I liked about this, it wasn't really a remake of Invasion of the Body Snatchers. It was a continuation.
Now, the classic fear begins to grow.
We're being cornered. I think we're all afraid of something taking your personality away.
They're barricading the street.
That's really scary.
Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Very bizarre.
Let's get out of here.
We've got this far. We must go on. We have to go on.
Darker and even scarier was Alien, one of the greatest sci-fi horror films ever made.
Come on down here. Something different down here.
Similar in theme to Howard Hawks' The Thing, Alien offered eye-popping visuals by renowned artist H.R. Giger.
What the hell is this?
Brilliant direction by Ridley Scott, and one of the scariest screen monsters this side of the galaxy.
Alien was definitely a new milestone of films and monsters, for sure. I mean, you'd never seen a monster like that ever in any kind of a film before.
They went from the egg thing to that sucker that goes on John Hurt's face.
My God. What's it got down his throat?
And then it sends that tube down.
I would suggest it's feeding him oxygen. Paralyzes him, puts him in a coma, and keeps him alive. Now, what the hell is that?
And then it starts to grow and accelerate at a tremendous rate.
And the first thing that I'm going to do when I get back is to get some decent food.
You can dig it, man. I'll tell you, I haven't eaten breast food this much. What's the matter? The food ain't that bad, baby.
You choke? What's wrong?
Before we actually had the chest bursting scene.
Oh, God!
They took us down to the prop house, and they showed us sort of a mock-up of the little beast. Oh, the guy was so cute, the special effects guy. And he goes, yes, but when you actually, it's going to breathe, and the mouth will go in and out. And, I mean, we're looking at this sort of gray penis. Can I say that?
Oh, no. Don't touch it. Don't touch it.
So then by the time that we did the chest bursting scene, it was breathing. Quite a shock, actually. Ridley wanted that idea of truckers in space. That's why he wanted those things that dripped and the chamber was messy and stuff like that. And that's what makes it even scarier. The alien started to blend in with the pipes and the weirdness of the set.
Hey, come on, Jonesy. Come on, baby.
What was that? Was that a tail? What was that part? You didn't know what it looked like. And you weren't sure whether you saw him or you didn't see him, and that's what was so spooky.
I'm not Terry Lambert. I want to get the hell out of here.
Move! Get out of there! Don't you move! Down! Move down! Move down! Get out!
In the end, of course, the real evil in Alien is identified as the mining ship's unseen corporate bosses. Their purely commercial interest in capturing the film's biomechanic beast serves as a chilling indictment on an amoral culture, more fixated on the bottom line than on ideology.
What I think made Alien work so well is because there was so much of the human element in there, that you cared about those people. You want them to win. One person got away. It had a feminist take on it in a weird sort of way. Ripley's character was strong and in control and able to do anything that a man could do. And she ultimately ends up to survive in that movie.
Final report of the commercial starship Nostromo. Third officer reporting. The other members of the crew are dead. Cargo and ship destroyed. This is Ripley, last survivor of the Nostromo. Signing off.
I'd like to keep this handy. For close encounters.
Less cerebral, but no less intense, was Aliens.
Let's go! Move it out!
The pulse-pounding sequel directed by James Cameron in 1986.
First squad up, online.
Multiple signals. They're closing. Pull your team out, Gorman.
Do something!
Again starring Sigourney Weaver, Aliens delivered a roller coaster ride of shudders and screams.
Hold on!
It also expanded on the original film's themes of sexuality and reproduction by introducing us to a highly fertile and highly protective alien queen.
It's an odyssey this woman makes. Through a nightmare and out of it. I think that's what interested me, made me want to do a sequel, because I wanted to get back and get inside her again and see what had happened.
My mommy always said there were no monsters, no real ones, but there are.
Yes, there are, aren't there? When I find this little child, we both have a similar nightmare. She is the only other person who's had the same experience that Ripley's had and survived. And then ultimately I managed to take care of her, so I become a kind of parent. Get away from her, you bitch!
Something happened when you went through, Seth. You've got to get some help. I think you must be sick. You're jealous!
I've become free. I've been released, and you can't stand it.
As a deadly disease called AIDS began sweeping the planet, audiences began to consider that the wild times of the 70s might have come with a heavy price.
What's happening to me? Am I dying?
Starring Jeff Goldblum as the hapless scientist who becomes infected with the genes of a misplaced housefly, The Fly explored the consequences of self-induced biological experimentation.
When he comes out of the receiving pod, he is perfectly normal. But the fly has disappeared. His body has assimilated the fly, and more than that, it has fused with the fly on a genetic level.
Seth?
No, up here.
Oh.
Got pretty good at it, haven't I? Maybe not such a bad disease after all.
And gradually he begins to realize that he is in fact transforming into something that has never really existed before.
I'm an insect. Who dreamt he was a man? But now the dream is over. And the insect is awake.
Better alive, you're coming with me.
Released the next year, RoboCop offered another twist on the mad scientist theme. When a battered cop is resurrected as a bionic Frankenstein.
What are your prime directives? Serve the public trust, protect the innocent, uphold the law. Drop the gun, you are under arrest. Thank you for your cooperation.
Of course, aliens and monsters didn't always appear in human form or come from within. Sometimes they came by surprise. In 1987, Predator attacked the big screen with its no-nonsense twist on the Planet of the Apes theme. Here again, humans are the prey. But this was not a film to waste words on character development or spend valuable screen time making socio-political messages. Predator was an aliens-inspired action adventure that left audiences little time to catch their breath and made no apologies. By the end of the 1980s, American audiences seemed to be overdosing on images of violence and negativity. Science was now invading our homes in the form of computers, and this strange alien technology offered everything from unlimited knowledge and prosperity to nightmare visions never possible before.
Hollywood Aliens and Monsters continues on A&E.
In the 1990s, remakes were the rage. There was The Fly 2, Predator 2, Alien 3, Star Trek 4, 5, and 6.
Bud?
Huge advances in computer technology had literally changed the face of science fiction films.
Well, there's a scene in The Abyss where the water itself becomes alive and rises up and goes into the facility that these people are in and tries to communicate with them.
It's wonderful.
That was done with very complex computer graphics techniques that have never really been used before. And so people were seeing something quite new, and they were fascinated by it.
When director James Cameron wanted water literally to come to life, he enlisted the aid of computer graphics expert Dennis Muren from George Lucas's ILM Studios. ILM, or Industrial Light and Magic, was a company created by Lucasfilm to pioneer the state-of-the-art in both 2- and 3-dimensional special effects. Using CGI, or computer-generated imaging, filmmakers could now make the impossible startlingly real. 1993, Universal Pictures released Steven Spielberg's Jurassic Park. Based on the best-selling novel by Michael Crichton, the film was a modern-day variation of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's The Lost World.
What have they got in there? King Kong?
Were films like King Kong or the original Lost World speculated that large prehistoric beasts had survived by natural means,
It's a dinosaur.
Jurassic Park played upon the audience's real fears of DNA research and cloning.
John, the kind of control you're attempting is, it's not possible. Listen, there's one thing the history of evolution has taught us, it's that life will not be contained. Life breaks free, it expands to new territories, and it crashes through barriers painfully, maybe even dangerously, but, well, there it is.
With the help of ILM effects artist Mark Dippy and Steve Williams, computer effects combined with archaeology to create one of the most realistic nightmares of the modern age. Jurassic Park became a box office blockbuster, earning nearly $1 billion worldwide. It went on to earn 3 Oscars, including one for the year's Best Visual Effects. Rubber monsters and plastic spaceships have become a thing of the past. Today's filmmakers are now free to express the boundless limits of their imagination and face the millennium with new approaches to hundreds of time-honored stories and established concepts. In 1996, 20th Century Fox released Independence Day, a roller coaster paced story about an alien invasion.
Independence Day is about the last 3 days leading up to the end of the world.
We've got to stop them! They're going to kill us all!
What if tomorrow morning we were to wake up to discover enormous spaceships 15 miles wide hovering over the 30 biggest cities of the world? Wouldn't that be the most exciting day in the history of mankind? Wouldn't it be the most monumental thing ever to happen?
Los Angeles Attack Squadron has AMRAAM missiles locked on target.
Washington, New York Squadron is reporting lock on.
Fire at will.
Are they not getting through? No, sir, not one.
We got another one, sir. 2 more just went down. They're dropping like flies.
We're losing. All right, get them out of there.
You know, when I read this, I thought first it was going to be a great movie to go see. Great audience, energizing kind of event where you can get everybody kind of knowing that they're going to join together in the audience. Go, oh gosh, that's happening. Oh no. And yes, yes, go get them.
Welcome to Earth.
A modern-day update on H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds. The film offered a contemporary twist on the original's cold germ climax.
We can't penetrate their defenses. If we plant a virus into that mother ship, it's going to then filter down into all the corresponding ships below.
I'm sorry, I don't understand. Just how exactly do we infect the mothership with this virus?
We're going to have to fly their alien craft out of our atmosphere and dock with it.
With the aid of a computer virus, the Earth is saved.
Virus is in. Delivery complete. Engage.
Prepare to engage! All right, Mr. President, here we go. We'll throw them up and it'll be all yours. Look out! Coming through! It's the worst of my generation! Up yours!
After 20 years, the Star Wars trilogy returned to theaters, this time in a computer-enhanced special edition, and went on to break even more box office records.
Well, I think one of the reasons Star Wars is as popular today as it was then is George Lucas's uncanny ability to recognize how to keep something in the minds of the public.
Get alongside that one.
From the time those films ceased with The Return of the Jedi, for a while you didn't see anything about Star Wars and the interest was not there, dissipated.
And I'll return. I promise.
Then suddenly you saw new novels. You saw more toys reemerging to keep it in the eye of the public. And then when you have it reissued with new effects, when you have all the hype of that, you can't wait to see it again because it's an old friend. But it's not only your old friend, it's an old friend that's been dressed up and looking better than ever.
Remember, the Force will be with you, always.
From makeshift monsters to digital dinosaurs. From Lang and Méliès to Lucas and Spielberg. For nearly 100 years, Hollywood's aliens and monsters have helped us explore our innermost fears and allowed us to touch the boundless corners of the universe. Through them, we have examined the scientifically probable and the downright impossible, but always with a nod to the imagination.
The ingredient that you really have to be a science fiction enthusiast is kind of a wild imagination.
Science fiction is a universal genre. It opens up the possibilities of the imagination in a way that more realistic stories can't do.
For me and for a lot of people that are fans of these pictures, it's like bringing back part of their childhood.
Our folklore today is, in a sense, the movies, the horror movies, the fantastic movies, fantasy movies, science fiction movies. Just like folklore stories about monsters working in some force fascinated people of long ago.
Well, I think the best films, and certainly the best science fiction films, always have strong emotion within the kind of the hardware setting.
I do think it comes down to the human element. And if that goes, then it just becomes a big special effect.
I think one of the big strengths of science fiction is it has very many positive things to say about man and his world and his future.
I can't even visualize 20 years down the road what's going to happen here. It'll be amazing, I'm sure. Very amazing. Maybe very frightening, too. I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see.
To understand our future, we must first examine our past. We should study the writings of Wells, Verne, Bradbury, and Asimov, and the visions of directors like Powell, Kubrick, Cameron, and Spielberg. And, oh yes, it's always a good idea to keep watching the skies.
call a close encounter.
Now from A&E Home Video, you can own the creature feature presentation Hollywood Aliens and Monsters for $29.95 plus shipping and handling. Call 1-800-423-1212 to order. From the arms race to the civil rights movement, Biography takes you through the life of Dwight D. Eisenhower tomorrow night at 8 Eastern, 9 Pacific. Now, it's alive. The true story of Frankenstein. Next on A&E.